someone says, I would like to ask, as you're covering your topics, that you also fit in mentioning things about if the move is temporary and you consider returning to your homeland in 3, 5, or 10 years. Also, if you can quickly touch on how the US or the IRS views the person in question, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so someone is asking about if they're moving to the US for, just a few years, 3, 5, or 10 years. So I guess maybe it's work related or something like that. That seems to be a bit vague, but I guess you want to comment on what the options are from an immigration perspective for temporary move?
Yeah, I'll take a guess. I think what this individual is asking is what happens if you're outside the US for a long period of time, maybe on a work assignment or an academic assignment, and you don't want to give up your residency, but you're not going to be going back and forth very much. Basically, I think that's what they're asking.
Okay.
So if that happens, if you are a US permanent resident and you know you're going to be gone for a long period of time, there is something that you can do. And before you leave for that long trip, you apply for what's called a reentry permit. And this is a permit that you have to file when you're physically present in the US, but you just need to file that permit while your feet are on the ground in the US before you leave, and it constitutes asking for advance permission to be gone from the US for a period of up to 2 years. And so once that's filed, generally with the first time, nobody has any issues. I've had individuals on reentry permits 4 and 5 times. They work for companies abroad, and every 2 years, they just keep getting another reentry permit. So as long as you have a valid reason for doing so, and you don't have the intent to give up your residency, it's generally something that can be worked out.
Okay. And there's a rule of thumb that you should at least try to enter every 6 months. Is that correct, or is it just a rumor? Is that right?
Yes. I would say I always advise my clients to always enter the US at least once every 6 months, and don't be outside the US for longer than 1 year. Because if you're outside the US for longer than a year, you're going to have been deemed abandoning your permanent residency, and then you've got to fight with the government to try to get it back. But there's to answer your question, there's no hard and fast rule at the 6 month mark. It's just the point that if you come in once every 6 months, that's at least a couple of trips a year. Keep your driver's license, keep your address, and whatever else that you do to be a normal resident. Keep all of that active, your bank accounts, things like that. And generally speaking, there isn't much of an issue. Of course, I would say come as much as you can. Quarterly is better than twice a year. Every month is better than that. But yeah, generally it's okay for most of my clients if they're in and out at least once every 6 months.
Okay, I gotcha. But I've heard in my network of people who have been out for just a month or two, and they were challenged at the airport on trying to re-enter, and some have been detained while, so is there in a situation like that where you're being challenged by the Customs and Border Protection officer? Like, you said you make sure you have your driver's license. So any other documents, like should you keep a tax return, like, a utility bill? Like what can you use to, make it as easy a process as possible?
Yeah. So I think the whole premise of this discussion is how do you not convince, but how do you show a Customs and Border Protection officer that you don't have any intent to give up your residency? For whatever reason, the last trip that you were on was longer maybe than you thought it would be, or it was longer than he thinks it should have been. And so then you have to explain, no, I am a resident here. Here's my license. Here's a copy of my last bank statement. Here is where, or a copy of, if you have kids, maybe evidence that you have kids and they live in the United States. You know, if you have a home that you're renting, leasing, or own, maybe just bring a document or two with that address on it. You know, a telephone bill. I mean, things like that. It's good to carry with you some things, and of course, tax return information. If you can have evidence of that, then that's a very good indication that you don't intend to give up your residency.
Okay, gotcha. And of course, if they get any further challenges, it'll be good if they can reach out to a qualified professional like yourself, who may be able to assist in a situation like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you do get into the point where you're not going to win that argument on that day, what normally happens is the officer will take the actual physical card, and they will then issue you what's called a notice to appear, and then you're being placed in immigration court proceedings. And so you have to basically convince the judge that you didn't intend to give up your green card. But that's actually, it kind of shows that the system is good for defending people who are residents, because it's not like you're out of the US, the government can just take the card and that's it. You actually have a right to appear before an immigration judge to argue your side of the case. And, you know, I used to work at immigration court many, many years ago in San Diego. And so we saw a lot of these types of cases, and you are given a chance to explain what happened. And I think if you do end up in that scenario, it's a good thing that you can argue your way, but definitely get some counsel for that as well.
Okay, gotcha.
Please subscribe, like, share, and comment below. Our books and upcoming event are available at htj.tax. Email us at help@htj.tax to engage us, to advise on international tax or business matters.